All right, guys, today we're going to be wrapping up the final details that it's going to take to complete the installation of the LSA supercharger that we're doing on the COPO Silverado. I also want to say thank you to SimpliSafe. They're the sponsor of today's video. So we're going to get started by building a couple of brackets. We got to get some things mounted like the intercooler pump, the coolant reservoir, the throttle cable bracket, and a few other odds and ends. So let's jump right in and get to the action. We moved into this place about a year or a year and a half ago, and ever since then I've been trying to come up with a decent security system that'll let me keep an eye on everything, both inside the house where my family and I live, and inside the shop where we have all of our tools and equipment stored, and finally out in the driveway where we park the vehicles. And as of this morning, with some help of equipment and monitoring from SimpliSafe, we have everything covered. The inside of the house, the inside of the shop, and out there in the driveway. Because everything was so simple to set up, I wanted to give you guys a quick rundown of the equipment and how it all works. The installation process was super simple. It all started by plugging the base station into the wall, and from there all of the other sensors wirelessly connect, so there's no cables to run and you don't have to drill holes in your wall. You just set it up using the app on your phone. In total, we got some motion sensors, glass breakage sensors, and of course the door opening sensors. So if somebody comes in the house and they're not supposed to be there, we are gonna know about it. But they also have all kinds of other options as well. Includes smoke detectors, carbon monoxide sensors, as well as water and temperature sensors, which are helpful if you live in a freezing environment or maybe you're worried about floods. And the best part is everything ties together seamlessly on the same system. To help keep an eye on everything inside the shop when I'm not around, we have the wireless indoor security camera. It's mounted up on the wall, but the cool thing about that is it also has night vision. So if something happens, at nighttime or the lights are off, we'll still be able to see what's going on. And as far as the driveway goes, we also have the wireless outdoor security camera. This keeps an eye on everything that goes on outside. SimpliSafe is backed up by a professional 24/7 monitoring service. And if any of your sensors at home detect any unusual activity, all you gotta do is pull out your phone and check out the live video screen from the cameras, and you can see exactly what is going on in real time. And if you do have the professional monitoring service and there is an actual emergency, they'll send help right now. We'll get it on the way, whether that's the fire truck, the ambulance, the police. They'll get you the help that you need right away. And I've got to say, I do have a lot more peace of mind now knowing that my house and my family, that's the most important thing, is that my family are now protected. So if you want the same thing for your place, check out SimpliSafe. And they have a great deal running right now for subscribers of this channel. All you've got to do is go to simplisafe.com/LT and you'll get 20% off your security system hardware, and they'll even throw in the first month of monitoring for free. So all the footage that you just watched is actually about 2 full days worth of work for me. I think I recorded most of what I was doing. But when I show you all the things that I've built in that amount of time, you probably will think I didn't get a whole lot done. But if you will remember, one of my goals and objectives for this LSA swap is to make one of the cleanest and most factory appearing conversions that I possibly could do, because I hate stuff that looks like it doesn't belong under the hood of a truck. I like it to look OE, I like seamless integration, and that's what I was trying to do on this particular install. So that being said, it does take me a lot longer to kind of build simple brackets to get stuff mounted. But I'm okay with that. I am really pleased with how stuff turned out. And in the long run, like, I don't know what it is, but if I half-ass something on an install, I'm gonna have to go back later and fix it because it just bugs the crap out of me and I can't sleep at night. Like, I've literally stayed up at night thinking about, like, oh shoot, I made that bracket wrong and I wanted to like redo it, which, I mean, that's, I don't know, call me crazy, but I hope on some level you guys kind of maybe feel the same way about it, because for me, it's like, if you're gonna take the effort and the time to do something, you might as well make it as right as you possibly can. Like, I don't care what skill level you're at. I don't care if you're just starting out or if you've been doing this for 50 years. Like, always try to put in 110% when you're building something. Always try to make it a little bit better than the last one. So it's like with every build, I'm trying to do things nicer and better and just stepping up the quality constantly. So anyway, that's my soapbox for the day. Things take time. So let me show you the pile of brackets that we've built and what all this effort got us. So this is it, guys. We have 4 brackets plus a modified factory inner fender support. So real quick, I'll kind of map out where this is all going to go. Most of the components that we're installing are going to be mounted in this corner right here, just because I figured we already have the expansion tank and it'll be just a nice natural flow to have all the hoses and connections to go in between this corner of the fender over to the engine. So the first thing we have is the expansion tank for the supercharger setup. That's going to be mounted at the same or a little bit higher level than the intercooler brick inside that, because right now that's the highest point of the system and any air bubbles would form there unless we have a higher spot. So we'll have the reservoir mounted. I put a level on here. It's like an inch or two higher, like to the middle of the tank. So we can fill that up with no air pockets in there. We have to have the pump mounted below that, so it gravity drains from the reservoir into the pump. That's going to be mounted on the inside of that little guy right there. You noticed I had another one of those. And then I also have a catch can that's going to go in the PCV system mounted sort of in between the two. So it'll go coolant tank, supercharger tank, and then catch can right in the middle. And then that'll allow everything just to kind of flow back and forth. So back over here we have the bracket for the intercooler tank. That's just going to sit up nice and high. That'll bolt to the factory bolts on here and the inner fender. And I did have to add one more riv nut, that guy right there. And then let's see, so that's the pump, and the catch can is going to mount on this bracket just on the side here. And I made this one removable just in case I ever decide to change up my catch can setup. I won't have that bracket permanently welded to the stand there. The pump is going to sit on this bracket, and the pump only has one mounting bolt on it. And because I am going to be mounting it vertical, so you know, water gravity drains into it, it potentially could like flop around. So I built this bracket with a little shelf on it just so it won't sort of pivot or tip or anything like that. And then those 3 bolts there are going to attach to this right here. So that's going to get replaced. I had to put a hole in it here for the outlet of the pump to go to the front because the hose is going to come. I haven't put the hole in yet, but I'm going to put a hole somewhere in this plastic structure, maybe right through here, so the hose can get to the heat exchanger and it'll flow across and then pump out the other side into the supercharger. I think, oh, the throttle cable, that's the last bracket that I took care of. This is something that I built using just some flat stock and part of the original truck throttle cable right there. And the reason why I did that is because there were no good solutions on the aftermarket that I found that I would have been happy with and I think would have worked the way that I have this thing set up. So Motion Raceworks does sell a bracket that'll bolt right onto their Icon throttle body, but they say that won't work with an LSA, so that one was out. They also sell a bracket that's made from billet aluminum. It looks really nice, and it goes between this little mount there and the one here on the fuel rail, so between those 2 points. but that bracket won't work with the LS9 fuel rail because there's a tab here that doesn't have, and I think the fuel rail is mounted a little lower or higher than the CTSV one. So that bracket was out. I didn't want to spend money on a bracket just to cut it up and modify it. So instead I made my own that uses this one, this bolt here and this guy up here. And then the only other one I was going to mention is the Holley one that kind of bolts in between the supercharger and the throttle body. I think that'll fit, and I've seen guys use it, but I don't think it'll space the throttle cable back far enough to work with a factory style throttle body, because when this is like the pedals all the way up, like that's how much extra cable sticks out. And the Holley one I don't think would have pushed it back far enough, because right now the throttle plate, or the plate where the bracket sits, is like way back here. So anyway, I built my own. I'm really happy with the geometry. I made sure that it pulls the cable exactly straight with this guy here, so there should be no binding or pulling off to the side. I think my cruise control will still work. I don't know if this cable is going to be quite long enough, and as you can see, it kind of has an ugly routing where it goes along the side. So I don't know if maybe somebody makes a longer throttle cable or cruise control setup. I'm not sure if I have to take that off. It doesn't bother me all that much. But for the throttle cable itself, I actually did replace this. The original truck one was not long enough. This is from an L31 Chevy pickup truck, so like a 96, 7, or 8, and some of the 99 old body style Chevys with a 5.7. They have a longer throttle cable because it kind of routes to the front and does a 180. So that's long enough to work with the way that I have this designed, but not quite long enough to do what I wanted. Because originally I didn't want anything going over the top of the supercharger here, and the throttle cable I wish I could have found comes out, goes back along the side here, and then into my bracket. Where this one, it'll kind of, I'm going to have to put a bracket to hold it down, because you can see it kind of pops up there, but it's going to kind of do that, which it works. It'll get me on the road for now, but I want to try to find a little bit longer factory one. Like, I like how it all clicks together like the factory did, and this like obsession I have with factory stuff is kind of going to drive me crazy. But I'm hoping that maybe like from a Chevy Express van or some other application, I can find a little bit longer throttle body. So help me out if you've done an install like this and you know of a factory throttle cable that's a little bit longer. The one that I have, they list as a 48-inch length. So if you know of something longer, let me know. I'd love to find something that fits just a little bit cleaner. But anyway, this will get us out of a pinch. So from now, kind of what my plan is, I want to get all this wiring taken care of. Like in a video a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago maybe, I modified the harness. I changed out the injector ends and I moved a bunch of stuff around so it fits nice and tight down below and behind the supercharger. But obviously none of it's protected. So what I'm going to do next is, well, first I'll get all this stuff mounted, and then what I'll do is I'll pull all this harness back out. I got a bunch of wiring supplies. I got some harness tape. I got some wire loom cover. We're going to get this all wrapped up and kind of one more major step taken care of. Well, just a couple hours later, we have all the wiring harness tucked back where it belongs. All the covering is on, it's all taped up, it's secured, and we're ready to move on to the next part of the build. And I gotta say, I'm like 90 to 95% happy with how this turned out. It looks so much better than it did before we modified anything. Because if you remember, the wiring harness used to just drape right across the top of the supercharger, where now it goes nicely along the little valley right here between the intake and the valve cover. It runs along the backside. This side over here, I gotta say, I love how this turned out because there's so little wiring that actually comes down this way. It's basically just the 4 injector plugs and the coil harness for that side. Over here, it's kind of bulky. There's a few connections. I'm not crazy with how they look. There's a lot of tape in this spot right here just because there's like 1, 2, 3, there's, yeah, 4. There's 4 different branches that come out in different directions right there. So there's a lot of tape to kind of cover up the junctions between the wire loom. So I don't hate it, but I also don't love it. This is definitely not like a Rob Dahm style wiring harness. And if you guys don't watch his videos, you check him out. He's like a nut when it comes to wiring and stuff. And I aspire to build to the level of quality that he is doing. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with how this harness looks, and it's definitely a lot cleaner than it was before, and it'll work, and it's protecting the wires and all that good stuff. I did leave off the fuse block cover just because I'm going to be running a few more wires from here over to the intercooler pump. I haven't done that yet, but that'll be just kind of a separate sub harness of its own that's going to run kind of down and across. And I think at the same time, I'll run my little AC sensor because I actually haven't even installed that yet, but we did a video on that when we installed the electric fans, but that little sensor right there, or that's a switch rather, that's going to get replaced with a pressure sensor to send information over the computer. So I'll build, I think, one harness that just has the wiring for both of those things at the same time. But for now, I think what I want to work on next is the intake tube. So I got to get the battery out. I have a new plate that'll mount it over there. It's just a factory Duramax second battery tray. So we'll get that removed, and then we can start welding some aluminum tube. Well, that pretty much wraps up the intake tube. The only thing I am waiting for is a 1/4" NPT bung, and I'm gonna put that in after the mass airflow meter just so I have a fresh air supply for the PCV system, because if you're running a mass airflow sensor, pretty much all of the air that the engine consumes needs to be measured. So I'll add that guy somewhere right around here. I think it'll be a good hidden spot, but it's also after the MAF. Speaking of MAF, this is a dry air raid filter. There's no oil on this, so that means it won't mess up the sensor, where sometimes like the oiled filters, especially if you clean them and you over oil them, they can cause problems with your mass airflow meter. All this aluminum tube, this is from Spectre. It's like one of those, it's not a kit because I bought them all individually, but it's actually pretty decent aluminum. It welds really nice. This one I was kind of bummed about how it turned out. This is the first weld that I did, but like once I got down to these ones, I was cranking right along. So I'm happy with how all that stuff turned out. I could polish this if I wanted to. I'm actually going to paint it wrinkle black because I don't like the look of polished, and the wrinkle black will match up nicely with the heat exchanger lid. But just kind of for reference, oh, my cord is caught. If you want to polish the stuff, I built this intake tube for my 2020 L5P. All I did was hit it with some Scotch-Brite to get rid of some of that white oxidation from welding, and I briefly polished it. Like, I didn't spend much time at all, but that's kind of what you can make it look like if you want. But like I said, we're going with wrinkle black, and I'll probably put like satin black on this guy up here just to kind of tone it down a little bit. I don't like flashy stuff. I don't like shiny stuff. I like subdued, and I mean, I really love the wrinkle black look. That's what this is. Has a very factory and OEM look, so we're gonna match it on there. And that pretty much wraps up the installation. There are a few odds and ends I've got to do, like build some battery cables for our relocated battery, connect all the heat exchanger stuff together with some hoses, run some wiring down to the pump, connect the PCV hoses, and then put the little wires on the mass airflow sensor. But I've got everything wrapped and, you know, run up to where it belongs. So this will be a very simple modification. I might, if I have enough time, build some sort of little air dam to sort of separate hot engine bay heat from cold air for the engine to suck in, but that's fairly low on the priority list if I'm being honest. And then I think that's pretty much it. Like, we've already test fired it. We know the fuel system works. We know it starts up in idles and it'll take throttle like it should. So I'm pretty confident when it comes time to start driving this thing and tuning it, we aren't going to have any problems except maybe potentially the transmission, because I'm still waiting on a few odds and ends for the 4L80 swap. I think in the last video I showed you guys everything that we have, but I'm waiting for the torque converter and the input shaft for the NV149. So we are going to do our first test drives and probably our first dyno pulls and several burnouts with the truck still having a 4L60. And we'll find out how much it can take. Like, it's a 100% stock transmission. As far as I know, it's probably been rebuilt, I think, but I don't know anything about it other than I put a Summit converter in it. That's literally all I know about the 4L60 that's in this truck. So we're gonna give it hell and we're gonna see how much it'll hold up to. That is going to bring this video to an end. I'll take care of all of those odds and ends I just mentioned sometime between now and the next time you do see this truck. So I want to say thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Watching from start to finish, that definitely helps the channel. If you don't mind, like, comment, and subscribe. But if you only do one of those things, hit the subscribe button, because I am trying to get this channel to 100,000 subs. That's the next major milestone that we need to cross. So I need your help to make that happen. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you again soon.